What motivates me is really solving problems for people that today are unsolvable. Sight is such a precious gift. So being able to preserve it or restore it for people who are struggling is just massive satisfaction. And so to the extent I play a small part in finding the next treatment for someone who's visually impaired or blind, that would be the holy grail for me.
That's Brent Saunders, the chairman and CEO of Bausch Lomb. And I'm Josh Nelson, head of healthcare at THL Partners. And this is Healthcare in Action. It's a podcast that explores the latest developments and innovations transforming the U.S. healthcare sector, from cutting-edge technology to thoughtful approaches to patient care. I'm here with my colleague, Jon Lange, who will lead us in a conversation about the eye care market, including exciting new products in the pipeline and how to build a culture of innovation at a large healthcare organization. Jon, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Today, we'll look at a part of the healthcare sector that plays a crucial role in the daily lives of billions of people around the world, and yet is often taken for granted: eye health. The eye health market includes everything from glasses and contact lenses to consumer products to pharmaceuticals and surgical devices, and it addresses not only vision correction, but also many eye diseases that can cause serious damage and often don't have cures available. Few companies have contributed more to the eye health sector than Bausch Lomb, one of the largest companies in the space, and also one of the oldest healthcare companies in the US. In this episode, I spoke with Brent Saunders, who has led Bausch Lomb during 2 stints as CEO, most recently since returning to the company in 2023. In addition, Brent spent several years building what became Allergan and ultimately sold that company to AbbVie in 2020. Over Bausch Lomb's 172-year history, the company has grown from a small optical shop in Rochester, New York, to a multinational corporation with $5 billion in annual revenue. It's responsible for many groundbreaking innovations in eye health over the course of its long history, including the first mass-produced soft contact lens in the 1970s, Ray-Ban aviator goggles for military pilots in the 1930s, and even some of the first affordable glasses frames all the way back in the 1860s. Brent and I discussed the company's history and culture, the importance of mission, and how he approached reorienting the company to focus on driving major innovation. Brent also shared his perspectives on what it means to be a great leader in healthcare, his personal recipe for happiness, and where he sees the biggest opportunities in the coming years to improve the standard of care and address the most important unmet needs in eye health. So let's get into it. Brent, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, John. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Maybe to start out, of course, most people will be familiar with Bausch Lomb and a number of its brands and products, but can you just set the stage for people who haven't followed the company closely? What is the range of businesses that Bausch Lomb is in? And maybe tell us a bit about the evolution of the brands in the company.
Sure, absolutely. Bausch Lomb is a 172-year-old eye health company. We operate in the eye health segment in the broadest sense of the word. We organize around 4 businesses. One is a pharmaceutical business that makes prescription medicines for eye care. We have a consumer business that makes all the things you would buy in a drugstore or Walmart in the eye care aisle: vitamins, drops, and everything in between, contact lens solution. We have a contact lens business that makes contact lenses around the world. And last, we have a surgical business that makes everything an ophthalmic or retina surgeon would need to be able to do the surgery, whether that be lasers, capital equipment, implants, instruments, fluidics, surgical packs, gowns. So very comprehensive eye care company. The brand is an iconic brand, having been around for 172 years, but many of our products are sub-branded. So in the consumer space, our vitamins for people suffering with macular degeneration are known as PreserVision. Our contact lenses are known as, our newest one that's launching is called Infuse in the United States. Some of our drugs are for dry eye example are Xiidra or Mibo. And then in terms of cataract surgery or implants used in cataract surgery, we have an Invista product line of implants. So we have hundreds and hundreds of brands in the eye care space.
I think that's a good segue to a topic I wanted to talk to you about, which is innovation. And at least my understanding as an outsider is that when you rejoined Bausch Lomb in 2023, the company had been focused more on incremental innovations as opposed to more groundbreaking major innovations. And so I have a number of questions I want to get your thoughts on. But first, how do you reorient a company to major innovation and taking big swings, particularly when the company has been around for so long and has such a legacy and a culture already?
Yeah, great question. Never easy to do. I'll tell you the way we went about it. One was to really invest in talent in R&D and really go out and try to hire or promote or develop the best R&D talent in the organization. I spent my first year really working with our head of R&D on recruiting scientists and building out the capabilities of our R&D teams. And once you have that in place, it gives you the confidence to say, okay, now let's stop doing the incremental innovations. Let's get rid of some of these pipeline programs and let's make bigger investments in programs that are going to change the standard of care for patients. And the reason we believe we can do that is that we have the right people and the right talent with the right expertise and experience to lead these programs. And so you feel more confident as a CEO investing behind a program when you're really confident in the talent of your team. And so that really was the formula that I deployed. It took time, but I'm really excited when I look at where we are today across all of our businesses and our pipeline. I would say it's never been stronger. And we unveiled it in November at the New York Stock Exchange to our investors, and we got tremendous feedback on the progress we've made.
I want to talk a bit about Project Halo. And at least my understanding is this could be the most exciting innovation in contact lenses in the past 25 years or more. Can you talk a bit about how that came about and the status today?
Yeah, it's a good story. So, Bausch Lomb invented the mass-produced self-contact lens in, I think it was 1971. And those were called hydrogels. Then in the late 90s, Bausch Lomb invented the next new material called silicone hydrogels. For the last 25, 26 years, the industry has been optimizing this material, silicone hydrogel. And Bausch & Lomb started it, but was late to the optimization of it. And so when I got here, I said, it's really important that we restore ourselves back to driving innovation in material science and contact lenses. And there's a real need because there's a lot of dropouts still in the industry because of end-of-day comfort. And so I think it was my second or third day as CEO. I went up to Rochester, New York, which is where our contact lens R&D team is. And then during the lunch hour, they set up easels with posters. And teams, many of them younger talent, were presenting these posters to me. And I would spend 10 minutes or so at each poster and getting to know folks. To be fair, I wasn't really so interested in what was on the poster. I was more interested in the talent behind the poster and getting to meet the people. But I get to this one poster about this novel material using hyaluronic acid as its backbone. And I really was impressed by the team and the idea and the concept. And I called the head of R&D and I said, I wonder if we could turn this into a full-blown development program. And I walked them through my rationale. We then met with the team. And I said to them, guys, you guys have a winning idea here. Whether we can bring it to life, remains to be seen. But I want to invest in it. And I'm going to meet with you guys every Friday till we figure out we can do it or we can't do it. And let's get started. But I'm going to give you one requirement. Not only do you have to change the game in material science, but we need to be able to manufacture this on our existing manufacturing lines because building new lines is a multi-billion-dollar investment. And I'd rather invest in the R&D than in new manufacturing capability. And so that was a pretty big challenge. And so over the course of the next 3 years, we've been meeting every Friday, and the team does a lot of work between Friday to Friday. And lo and behold, they cracked the code, they figured it out, and now we're in the final stages of clinical testing on that contact lens with a target launch date for 2028.
And what would this mean for patients, for consumers? How would this change the game?
So the promise is best-in-class comfort and potentially even, we'll have to see how the data plays out, right? We're doing the clinical studies, but potentially even better comfort at the end of the day than at the beginning of the day, because the way the lens is built using hyaluronic acid, which is your body and your eyes' natural moisturizer, as that interacts with the lens interacts with the natural enzymes in your eye, it releases more HA. And so the longer you wear it, in theory, the more comfortable it should be. And so it's really turning the whole paradigm on its head.
It's great to hear. And I'm really excited to see the data and the launch in a couple of years. I think this could really change the game.
Yeah, we should have data in the second half of 26, so 5, 6, 7 months from now.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about leadership. And of course, you have been at the helm of Bausch & Lomb now twice, and Allergan as well, and its predecessors. And so having been a leader, having seen lots of leaders succeed and fail, what do you think are the most important qualities to be a great leader of a healthcare company?
If I had to pick, let's try to winnow it down to maybe 2, maybe 3. But I think one is a realization that success is about the talent you surround yourself with. When you want to run a pharmaceutical company or a med tech company, or in Bausch & Lomb's case, a combination of both, you need really talented people on the team. I use a lot of sports analogies, but it's kind of like a football team, American football I'll use. You can have a great quarterback, but if you don't have a great line and great receivers and a good defense, it doesn't matter how great the quarterback is. You're not going to win Super Bowls. Super Bowls are won when the team is very talented at all positions. And that's true for leaders. You need to hire people smarter and better than you to push you and challenge you. You need to give them the room to operate. You need to coach them through the tough things. And you need to ask great questions. But most importantly, you need to hire really talented people. I think the second attribute I would define as curiosity. When you run a science-based company, and you're not a scientist, I'm not a scientist. I wish I was, if I could go back and get a redo, but I'm not. You have to be exceptionally curious. People who work with me, know I spend a lot of time very early in the morning. First thing I do when I get up is I scan the literature of all the different journals. I look at everything to read and study in order for me to ask questions of our talented scientists. Have we thought of this? Have you ever thought this application would work? And I send out emails early in the morning, 5:30, 6 a.m. Did you look at this? What about this? Have we seen this? And so it's really being very curious and pushing yourself. And then maybe the third, I think one attribute I learned from Fred Hassan, my mentor at Sharing Plow, but really humility. I think that the organization isn't here to serve me. I'm here to serve it. My job is to make everybody else's job easier. It's not for them to work for me. It's for me to work for them. And so I take that very seriously, and actions speak louder than words. So just a silly example, it may seem very simple, but I show up at every meeting on time. And one day somebody asked me at Allergan, why are you always on time? The previous CEO was always late. And I said, look around the room. I said, there are 18 of us in this room. And if I'm late for 30 minutes, that's 9 hours of productivity lost from really great people. And so not only do I want to be on time, but I want to run this meeting really efficiently because your guys' brain power is way too important. And those are just one simple example. But that's, I think, what great leaders do is realize they're there to make everybody else better, not to make themselves better.
I think that is a great way to summarize it. And it reminds me a bit of, at THL, we have an unofficial motto, smart, hungry, humble, what we aspire to be.
I like that.
I think it sort of mirrors some of the things you were saying, find great, smart people, the curiosity, the hunger, but then also the humility. And I always like sort of the simplicity of that, but how powerful it is if you get it right.
I may steal that. Is that trademarked or?
No, go for it. We'd love to spread it in the world.
All right. Thank you.
But with that, you mentioned the importance of building a great team and getting really smart people and great leaders in the organization, particularly at a big organization like Bausch & Lomb. How do you build a great culture, attract great people, retain great people in a way that really drives results?
Yeah, so it's a never-ending quest to find ways to do that. I think culture is really important. I spend a lot of time thinking about culture. We have a very simple culture statement. It should be something that everybody really understands. And having the statement and actually making it become the culture is a big, big jump. And so it's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of creating muscle memory. It's a lot of initiatives around how we evaluate performance reviews, how we promote people, how we recruit people, right? Really looking at that in the context of the culture we're trying to build and reinforcing it. And so I push pretty hard on this. I feel like I'm a politician. I go from site to site, country to country, talking and pushing on the same things, working with communications, HR, and others to really make it come to life, because I think it's essential, right? Ultimately, I want Bausch & Lomb to be known as not the biggest, but the best eye health company. And that's because our people are the best. And that turns out to being the best products with the best customer service.
A number of people watching this or listening into this will be students in undergrad or business school aspiring one day to be a great leader of a healthcare organization. And so what experiences would you suggest they pursue, or what things would you suggest they think about if they want to get there and be a great leader?
It's a great question. I think in terms of perhaps two things. In terms of field of study, I would take, you don't have to be a major, but I would take as many science courses, probably focus more on biology than chemistry, given where the world is today. But I would definitely be conversant in biology. And I say this to all my nieces and nephews and friends' kids. If you're not trying to absorb and learn everything you can that your university has to offer about AI, you're missing one of the greatest opportunities you'll probably see in your lifetime. And so, if I were a college student, I would be either taking those courses. Many of the universities offer them online. You can do them on the weekends or at night. But I would be really becoming very proficient, or even creating an expertise in artificial intelligence as well. I think having the combination of those two academic opportunities, I would be all over both of them. But I think more important than perhaps learning, I'd just be prepared to work hard. I was with an entrepreneur yesterday who'd been out of business for 13 years and having modest success. And this year, their products hit, and the business is now worth billions. And he's sitting at lunch and he knocked on the table and he goes, "We got very lucky." And I said, it's funny because I know how hard you work. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's not luck. It was 13 years of really blood, sweat, and tears, missing vacations and working over weekends. I know you feel lucky because you're having great success today, but it really wasn't luck." The one thing I worry about sometimes, I probably sound like my parents saying this, but the younger generation, I don't feel people really understand how hard a lot of people had to work to get to where they are today. Controversial sometimes. One of the greatest innovators of our time is Elon Musk. That guy works 7 days a week, 18 or 20 hours a day. People forget how hard it is, right? And how hard and effective you have to be at what you do to get to the top of the game.
It's great advice. And, it reminds me, maybe tangentially, I read an interview with a pop star maybe 10, 15 years ago who had just become very successful, had a big hit. And the journalist asked something like, "How does it feel to be an overnight success?" And this musician said, "Well, it was an overnight success 12 years in the making."
Right.
And exactly to your point, it's sort of, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Maybe it's social media, but, people only see these successes. They don't realize, it's kind of like a duck floating on the surface of the water, how hard they're pedaling underneath, right? It looks so elegant and peaceful. but underneath they're really paddling pretty hard. And maybe social media has a bit of that complex that success seems so either lucky or easy, when the reality is, outside of winning the lottery, perhaps, there's no substitute for good old-fashioned hard work and commitment. And there's no overnight. I was just talking to an entrepreneur, started a business, they're doing well. And I said, you don't understand. You're in this for the long haul. And ultimately, I think you're going to be very successful, but it's not going to be in year 1 or 2. It'd probably be year 8, 9, or 10. And, you're just going to have to stick with it. And there are going to be bad days and good days and everything in between. But it's that consistency of showing up with vision, with passion, with commitment, day in and day out, that creates that lucky feeling.
Absolutely. Well, it's great advice. And finally, I wanted to ask you, there's so much going on at Bausch & Lomb. There's so much innovation. What excites you most as you look forward 5, 10, 15 years about the company, about the upcoming innovation, about what it can do for consumers and patients?
Yeah, I think what motivates me is really solving problems for people that today are unsolvable. Sight is such a precious gift. So being able to preserve it or restore it for people who are struggling is just massive, satisfaction. And so to the extent I play a small part in finding the next treatment for someone who's visually impaired or blind, that would be the holy grail for me. That would be that would be maybe even when I retire and say, wow, now I really feel like I've accomplished something.
It's really exciting. And you are in such an exciting position of being able to steer a company with this rich history and push it toward innovation, which can make a real difference for patients. And as you say, solve unsolvable problems, cure things that can't be cured today. So thank you for all you're doing, and look forward to checking in sometime soon to hear about all the great progress.
Yeah, I would love that. And John, I really enjoyed doing this. So thank you for taking your time to learn a little bit more about what we're doing.
Thank you for listening to Healthcare in Action, brought to you by THL. To help Healthcare in Action reach more listeners like you, either share this episode with a colleague, subscribe to the show, or rate or review us on Apple Podcasts. And for more background on THL's healthcare vertical, visit thl.com/verticals/healthcare.